Good morning, everybody. It's your friendly executive cat herder, Marissa Friedman, and I am so excited about the person that I'm bringing on today to share with all of you. Why am I so excited? Well, you guys typically are asking for, no fake gurus, no internet kind of mystery makers. And I wanted to seek out someone that I thought was an expert in one particular social media platform. So before I tell you what that platform is, I am going to give you some interesting statistics that you need to consider right now today. So brace yourself. The platform that I'm talking about has 478 million users that are active. Over 240 billion pieces of content have been saved from this platform. And between October 2020 and this year, as of the last 30 days, 1.22 billion total visits. Now, I'm going to keep going. When we talk about age demographics of people that are on this platform, 18 to 29-year-olds, it's about 32%. 30 to 49-year-olds, it's about 34%. And wait for it, 50 to 64-year-olds, it's about 38%. And I know you want to know. Here's the last thing you need to know. 89% of these users are looking for purchase inspiration and have described that this particular platform is the place where they can find ideas, products, or services or service providers they can trust. And if you haven't guessed in the comments already, I'm going to tell you right now, it is Pinterest. And here to talk to us today is one of my favorite people. I started following her on TikTok, and I am just blown away not only by the content but the strategies that she uses. She is a Pinterest marketing strategist who helps businesses skyrocket their website traffic and conversions. Originally from Brazil and now resides in Tampa, Florida. I am talking about the one and only Tereza Toledo. Hello, how are you?
Hello,
Nice to
hello.
have you.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is really exciting.
Oh, I'm so excited as well. Now, just a couple quick more bullet points on Teresa. She actually, I mentioned she lives in Tampa. She has a bachelor's degree in law, which is banana sandwich, speaks four languages, almost a polyglot, travels. And, what I think is really interesting is she has this incredible perspective and this way of organically kind of looking at Pinterest. And, when I met her, I was just like, I just have to connect with her. I have to stalk her appropriately on all of the different channels. I think that's what I did. I was like, "Hi, I've been stalking you. We need to connect."
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more. Like, I think when people think of social media, they kind of think of like the Big Ten, right? And I think if we looked at behavior kind of in, the early 2000s and what people thought Pinterest was, right? I remember thinking, I don't do DIY craft projects. I'm not a food blogger. I don't need to pay attention to that. And it's just kind of been this stealth platform that has grown. And, I'd love to know kind of like what drew you to the platform and what really sparked your interest in kind of specializing in it.
So the very first thing is that Pinterest has been around since 2012. And in the beginning, people had to you need to be invited. It was kind of almost like Clubhouse. You needed an invitation, and that stopped. And back then, people didn't know what to do with it. It felt like Pinterest was this place where you take a picture and save your ideas, and it was pretty much a vision board that you could carry in your pocket. And yes, for the first years, the way that it was mostly being used was to recipes, arts, crafts, outfits, decor, all of that. But over time, it started changing. Now, what makes Pinterest very unique is that it's not social media, even though we call it social media a lot of times, but that means that the social interaction doesn't happen there. People are using Pinterest to discover things, to find things, to buy things, to get out of the social engagement that we have. So this makes a big difference. Also, Pinterest positions itself as a visual search engine. So it's pretty much as we could say a visual Google, and you can go in and search for whatever you want to search, but instead of finding, sentences, you're going to find the answers in the form of images. So this is pretty much the initial, what Pinterest is. So I've been working with Pinterest for over 5 years now. Actually, it was an opportunity that was handled to me. And back then, people didn't really know what to do with Pinterest. They just knew that if they put their website content, their blog content, which was really big at that time, bigger
Yeah.
than today, when people were still waiting for blog updates. Nowadays, we don't want to follow a blog. We just want to go read and leave. So we want to
Yeah.
binge consume any type of content, while back then it was different. So people knew that Pinterest was this huge monster that they didn't know exactly how, but could send traffic to your website. It was the best platform where you could add your content, and for every image that you pinned, which is AKA post, you could have a link. That will link, they would tap on it and go straight to your website. Right in
Okay.
itself, that is something that until today, no platform does. I mean,
Yep.
yes, you can share your link on Facebook, but Facebook doesn't like, and Facebook users don't want to leave Facebook. Nobody really wants to leave Facebook. And that goes for all of the other platforms. Either they will give you only one link, or they just don't want to leave the platform. While on Pinterest, there is this culture that we know that in order to get what we want, we must leave Pinterest and come back to Pinterest. So the motion of living, coming back, living, coming back, living, coming back, and then saving what we like for later, it's very natural. So I did have this internship opportunity. It was with a fitness coaching company. I am a certified fitness trainer, which
I
I
mean,
just
is there anything you don't do?
I love doing things and trying things and learning things. So that's just my spirit. But anyway, I still train myself only. But what was given to me is like, okay, we have all of these blogs, and they have over 100 blogs, and we've been using this Pinterest thing. You have to create an image, write something, and send to the website. And actually, at that moment, whatever we were doing, and at that point, whatever anyone was doing would work. It was really interesting because it was the early stages, early adopter kind of thing. Over time, Pinterest evolved a lot.
Yeah.
I did learn how to handle Facebook ads, Facebook organic, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube,
Yeah.
Google ads, TikTok, all of the platform. But in the end, even though I did serve clients with other platforms, I realized this is what I like the most. This is where I shine. So this
Yeah.
is where I'm gonna stay so I can shine even more. So that's how I chose Pinterest.
Well, and I think that you hit on so many good things for people that are watching because we have a lot of emerging kind of entrepreneurs or kind of early stage. And then we also have people that are reinventing themselves. So they've had a successful 20-year career in a corporate, industry, and now they're going off on their own. And I think it's really hard, but I want you guys to pay attention to something that you talked about. You focus on Pinterest, but you have these other skills as well, right? But you've really honed in on like, this is my jam. This is my platform that I shine on, and this is the one that I get. And I think it's really important when you look at like how the world has changed, right? I kind of joke with people, May 6th of 2004 is not a terribly relevant date for a lot of people. But here's the thing that I want you to pay attention to. So Reza was talking about how people used to wait for a blog drop or an update, right? We had patience. Now, in 2004, that is the last time that I can remember people gathering around a television. And why were they gathering around a television? It was the final episode of Friends. So 2004 was one of the last times where you could go on and you could see, oh my gosh, this is the final episode of Friends. If I don't get it, it's not gonna, it's I'm gonna miss it, and I'm not gonna be able to see it again. And think of like it's 2021, how different that behavior is now. And you touched on the head. We are binging, we save things, we go in spurts. Now, keep in mind when like shows launched on Netflix, I remember they had just brought in, I believe it was House of Cards at the time. And I want to say that was maybe about 2012, 2013. And it was the first time that on Netflix, instead of having it ask you if you wanted to watch the next episode, what it did was it just started the next episode and you had to stop it. Now, that little marketing decision started this kind of binging behavior that we see on social media today. It's one of the reasons why people will stay on platform on TikTok for 90 minutes. And so what's really interesting about what you said is you paid attention to the platform, but you paid attention to the behavior shift that audiences were doing. I think so many of us that get lost in our world, right? I'm watching so many Facebook marketers struggling right now because they've only done one thing one way and they haven't evolved and grown with the platform, right? So if you're still trying to do tactics that worked for you in 2006 on Facebook, inspiration and all that is great, but also there needs to be kind of some meat behind that. Now, what was interesting to me is you kind of talked about how you look at kind of your strategy and working with clients. And I'm going to ask probably too broad of a question, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Do you think any business can be successful on Pinterest, regardless of industry?
Well, I would love to come in and say yes for everyone. And the reason is because I really want to give that idea that it's so inclusive. But the truth of the matter, Pinterest is its own platform. Pinterest has a very strong TOS. There are certain niches that Pinterest will not allow. There are certain things that Pinterest will not give us freedom of speech. And that's how it's always been. Pinterest focus on being a place of positivity. So it's very interesting. One of the things that Pinterest did a few months ago is to launch a creator's code. So as you sign up for the platform and you start creating, you want to create one of the novelties, the newest babies of Pinterest, baby products, which is idea pins. The very first time you're using your phone to create one, you have to agree to the terms of the creator's code. And that code will tell you it needs to be positive. No bullying will be allowed. And it's pretty much telling us being on Pinterest is a right. Not a right, I'm sorry. Is a privilege, not a right. And if you don't follow the rules, we can say goodbye. So we know that platforms do that, but Facebook never asked us to agree with something like that. Any other platform never puts in your face something like you have to agree to our rules. So Pinterest is very specific. Now, that being said, there are several things that we can work around. Every platform has workarounds. But for example, we are not going to be talking politics. We're not going to be talking on Pinterest about things that are not FDA approved. We are not going to be talking about firearms. So we are going to be very cautious with things related to sexuality and child and all of that. Now, that being said, once we pass that part, there are businesses that will thrive faster and will benefit from it better. So pretty much what I mean is that you need to have content in the platform. Pinterest, you can use Pinterest to create your content within the platform only, as you would, for example, do with TikTok. But then your strategy must be completely different. In the usual sense, you need to have content on your website. You will not monetize within Pinterest. You need to
Okay, so it's gotta link out. And just to
yes.
stop you really quickly, for those of you that are watching and you're like, oh, there's like this actual like code of ethics. I just pulled the code up and it's very clear about the expectations, right? Being kind, don't putting people down, checking facts, very, very hyper factual, being aware of triggers and practicing discretion, practicing inclusion, and doing no harm. So I think what Tereza just pointed out here is there's some responsibility that they're putting on the creators on the platform of what will be tolerated and what will not be tolerated. And while generally we see things around, sexuality and weapons and all of that stuff, right? I think this is a really strong stance that a company is making on what they want on their platform. And I think that's a really big difference than any of the platforms that I've seen. So I'm just showing you guys visually so you can kind of understand that before you can ever do anything on the platform, you're going to have to agree to these things. And that's different than like your standard T's and C's, right? So and I think I work with in the same industry, Teresa, where we work with clients that are, maybe in industries that we can't do advertising for, right? We did a project for some fireworks companies. You cannot do any advertisements for fireworks. Now, it's not necessarily a weapon, but we still can't advertise it. So I think you're speaking to, I think a lot of people go, oh, I coach, why would I ever be on Pinterest? Or, oh, I just do this, why would I ever do that? And I think you're missing out on some opportunities, but I think you've also made a subtle distinction that you're going to be using Pinterest to direct people to your platforms or the channels you have to monetize, correct?
Correct. So ideally, the perfect business for Pinterest is a business that has an online offer, that has plenty of content. And I don't mean 100 pieces of content, anywhere with 10, 12, 15 pieces of content within that website. And of course, is, within the TOS, who is ready to understand Pinterest and put the content on Pinterest and create more while being patient. That's the ideal business. And don't get me wrong, usually people laugh at the by being patient, but the truth of the matter is Pinterest can be a very powerful organic engine, and not just a powerful momentarily, but an evergreen platform. Pinterest has the longest lasting effect for each piece of content that you add. So when we compare to other platforms, Pinterest is a slow burn, but the content circulates for months, if not years. So pretty much you have that content on your website and you push it to Pinterest, and that content, let's say it's fall relevant. Next fall, your content is still going to be circulating and generating traffic, as long as it was well positioned. So no platform does that. Facebook dies off within, if you're lucky, a couple of days. And so on every platform. So this is one of the powers. So you need to be patient.
Absolutely.
You need to have that in mind. You are investing on a platform that will give you fruits, sure fruits, but later. Now you mentioned coaches. A lot of times when you are a B2B, Pinterest tends to give you a little, not hard time, but it's a little slower. Because in mind, most people are there to do things, to find out things, to try things, to buy things. So as a coach, what you're having is not exactly what they're searching, but when you look at the audience and the behavior and what they expect from the platform, it is also a place for a coach. Even if you say, I'm going to use Pinterest to create a side effect, a snowball side effect, which is increasing my Google rankings.
Right.
Because
Well, and I think you've said so many things and you're so knowledgeable. I just want everyone to hear something that you said more than once, which is that it's a commitment to the platform, consistency, putting things up on the platform, and having a real expectation for a result. And I think that is the one thing when we talk about organic marketing strategies, right? I think people they have this idea in their minds that you go viral on TikTok, you make a bunch of money, you're throwing money at paid ads, and it's like this happens in a week. And I didn't invest any money into advertising until this last year, but I had good organic like involvement and commitment across my platforms, as you're mentioning. And so I think for a lot of people, when they're looking at Pinterest as an option, I think you hit that nail on the head too. It's people are your audience is there and they're searching, and so there could be a byproduct of event of just that brand awareness that everyone wants, or some impressions and reach that you might not have captured on another platform, simply because we know if you're going to post on Facebook or you're going to post on Instagram. I mean, people that have been Instagram focused, by the way, in the past 90 days, their world has been rocked, right? We're not focusing on pictures anymore. We're focusing only on videos. People are having to learn reels. IGTV, all these, they really made that bold statement about we are a video first platform. And in other countries, right, with Instagram removing likes, people are like, oh, what do we do? And I think it's the same thing. If you are committing to a service platform or whatever choice you're going to do, especially with Pinterest, it's going to be a slow build. This is your marketing muscle, and your marketing muscle is not built overnight, right? We are not a diet. It is not a phase. It is not, oh, this is going to work for you in a weekend. We're going to start and we're going to do a plan, and we're going to reevaluate the plan in 90 days. And then we're going to measure that plan and we're going to see if that works.
Exactly.
And if it doesn't, we'll make adjustments, right?
Exactly. And it's so interesting, which sometimes it feels for me that people understand that so easily when it comes to Instagram and Facebook. But then when they come to me on Pinterest, and is the very first thing I say, it's going to take time. And I even explain why, and it has to do how the platform is engineered to understand each and every piece of content, just as Google. When are you going to start showing on a Google ranking? We don't know. Google does what Google does. It may take 6 months for Google to pick you up. It may take even longer. It doesn't matter how well positioned your content is. So we see that effect on Pinterest, and people still come in with the idea, just because this platform is so great, so amazing, they expect to see it right away. But it doesn't happen right away. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. Honestly,
No.
I do have one specific account that I've been working in, and we're going in the third month, that I am blown away how fast things are happening. Now, the content is great. The client is creating content. We are working together in positioning the content in a very great way. So it can happen, but it's not the norm that we will see. So it's really important to keep that in mind. And I always say that when you have a business, when you build your business, you're not planning on closing your business in 2 months, 3 months. It's a commitment. You want to build that business over time, months, years. You don't create a business thinking, oh, after Christmas, we close down. So we want to get what we get now. Goodbye, good luck. No, it's almost, as a marriage. You don't, Pinterest should be treated the same way. So if you build your Pinterest account, you nurture, you put on it, you will get results. But if you want a quick fix, that's not a place for you.
Well, and I think I'm having some camera difficulties, but I'm just going to leave my voice up. I think I'm pulling up Tereza's Pinterest just so people can kind of see what I'm talking about with commitment, right? This was not, I just got excited in one day and decided to do marketing, right? This has been your tactical approach to doing everything. And I want people to see like you're really going for it, right? And I think at the top it gave us a list of, essentially like how many views you're getting per month. And I think that is what people want, but they're not clear that it's going to take them time and effort, right? They think that that's going to happen overnight, and we know that it's not. And I think,
Pinterest, you see, I do have clients that pass the 10 million views and stay there for a few months. And that number is fantastic. When you're talking about an account with 176,000 followers and, never going below 4.5 million views in the low season, hitting the 10 million organically. But that is an account that we've been working for 2 years.
wow. Well, and I think it's the same thing with us. Like most of our long-term, like higher end retainer clients, we were really clear that the first year was really about learning and growing and testing, and that we would essentially, by the process of elimination, determine which platforms they should focus on and then increase those, commitments over time, right? And I think people see the output of years of input, right? You didn't start with 80,000 views a month on Pinterest organically, right? So,
But truth be told, my own personal account is my playground. Is the place where I test different things so I can
mhm.
apply and talk about it. But so it's my playground. So I've had more than that. My personal strategy for my account is very minimum,
Yeah,
minimal operational, barely there, and it's happening. Now, one thing that I really like, you were talking about Instagram and switching to video. So all platforms want that video push. Now, Pinterest has become a video platform as well.
yeah,
Now, will Pinterest be an only video platform? No, I don't ever believe that. But
yeah,
Pinterest had to bring video as well. Now,
yes.
one thing that is really amazing, and I love talking about this, is that you don't have to get overwhelmed. If you're already creating content on Instagram, video content, if you're already working on creating content for
Mhm,
TikTok, there are ways in which you can integrate and create
mhm.
together. So of course, each and every platform, you have to tweak things. You can't just copy and paste from one to the other because the results will vary and most likely will not be what you expect. But once you put that under a minimum strategy, understanding the difference of each and every platform and how you can repurpose that content,
Mhm.
that's when
Yeah,
magic happens. And now we're even adding YouTube Shorts to the equation. So we don't only talk about Reels, TikTok. We have Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts,
yeah.
Pinterest, Facebook, and
Yeah.
how we can have this all pretty much streamlined and have this wholesome effect, so it's really
And
magic. And
I think it is a very healthy way.
platform, right? So
It's a healthy way to look at marketing, a
yes,
holistic approach. I think,
yes,
one thing we always tell people is to focus on three platforms, because we just know that intuitively, as algorithms change, if one completely like dies, you have some backup, or at least
exactly.
you have some, you have some other things. Like I do a lot more focus on LinkedIn with some of my B2B clients, but even they've said, hey, we've noticed by actually trying to answer people's questions and leveraging Pinterest kind of in the early stages, how much there's a cleaning products company that we work with, and they were very scared to get on the platform. And I think what we're seeing is that there's this really great kind of meshing, like kind of this, like there's kind of invisible lines between each of the platforms. But yeah, I think, like certain creators, they have their core focus and then they push it out everywhere else. And I think there's a lot of people that were stuck in a very kind of set it and forget it social media strategy on Facebook and Instagram, where it was just kind of motivational quotes, which is great. I think motivation is definitely a part of your strategy. But if you're a thought leader or you're someone that's out in the industry, you should be putting out your quotes on things and your things, because Oprah already has enough followers, right? Some of these people have enough. And I think that's where people get scared. And I think testing with your personal account is wonderful, but I also think you've hit so many things of how to integrate and marry all the different channels that you're on, right? It's definitely not my primary focus, but the reason I've looked at it is we work with so many entrepreneurs and small business owners that have created products that great example would be a company called Dirt Don't Hurt Me. They had a very health scare type issue, and they created a natural toothpaste. And I learned so much just from their website of how dangerous like regular toothbrush, like I never knew that you weren't like supposed to swallow toothpaste, right? Or that it was chemical or that it could cause cancer, right?
Poisonous, actually.
Right. And so they did a lot of educational content. And what they found was that people that were looking for healthy recipes or yoga or whatever, by default started finding their stuff. And I think that's what's really cool about the consumer journey, is that intent is everywhere, right? With our phones, how many times have we had a really bad day and start looking at vacations? How many times have we been in a store and tried to be like, oh, where's that recipe? Where did I leave it? And what's interesting to me, right, is, and I did this study, I want to say 3 months ago, I'd have to find a screenshot. The second largest source of traffic to Home Depot was actually from Pinterest. So what that tells me, and it was men. And so what that tells me is no longer is it just it's only women. It's like Home Depot is probably one of the most masculine, large companies that I can think of in terms of kind of their user platform and their user base. And I remember doing this and everyone was like freaking out. They're like, it's Home Depot. And I just remember thinking, yeah. So I mean, tell me about that, because I think you work with a lot of different companies, but I think what are I think there's a lot of obstacles that people see when they look at Pinterest. They go, "Oh my gosh, it's another thing that I'm going to have to learn." But I think what you said about the slow burn, it's like pick one thing and start there. Right? So if they're looking at everything, and sometimes I think we have to kind of focus them. It's like take some time and use the platform yourself, right? Like use it. Don't just like you can't devise a strategy for a platform that you're not using, right?
So
It
in this
doesn't make any sense.
aspect, when I teach, and I do have a course, and I love seeing people bootstrapping in the beginning and getting their hands there and doing it. In the very first step, after creating an account, I say, go and have fun. Search your niche, search yourself. If you have a website and you have some value on your website, most likely people already pinned your content, you don't even know. A lot of people come to me saying, hey, I want to know more about Pinterest because I've noticed that I have traffic coming from Pinterest and I don't even know how. So because people save what they like, and the more they save, the more people see. But anyway, and then go in, search our competitors, see what they're doing. The more you understand, the more you play with it, the easier it will become. So the hardest thing that I see people have, number one, they don't understand how the platform works. They come into Pinterest with the idea that they have on Facebook and Instagram. Because and even if you have been using Pinterest for your own personal reasons, you still will not understand how Pinterest works for marketing. So we need to understand that. So that's the the first barrier that we see. They don't view it in the long scheme of things. And then it comes the fear of commitment. Wow, now I have to create content. Now I have to create images. Now I have to create video. Well, technically, you should be doing that for build and nurture your clientele, to create parasocial relations. Look at even big brands. How many of us have that good feeling when seeing one of those Wendy's tweets, or Burger King, one of those smart comments that is,
That's the best thing ever.
we
Yeah.
love that. Even if you don't love the brand, you have a high concept of the brand just because of their parasocial relations. It's almost like this brand now has a face and becomes human, and we fall in love with it, even if we didn't like it before. So this is one of the effects that Pinterest can have, especially when done together in a way that is sustainable with other platforms. So if somebody is
Yeah.
already putting time and effort into other platforms, it's always a great idea to look into what they have and see how we can leverage that and help them
Well,
find a new audience.
oh, and I think you've hit, I think, for those of you guys that are watching and you're taking notes rapidly, right? Like, thank God I'm going to get this transcribed. But I think, Teresa's hit on so many different things, but specifically sustainability. And I think right now, so much of what we see in the entrepreneurial space, in the agency space, in the social media, everyone is looking for this instant gratification. Right? They launch a product, and if it doesn't sell six figures in the first week, it's a failure.
It's
And I look at that as it's like, I feel like people are getting set up for these unrealistic expectations. And the two things that I've noticed, number one, is that it's a commitment to consistency, which is not sexy. We don't talk about that in entrepreneurship enough. But it is also a commitment to, like, well, you should have been already doing these things. And so if you're not, jumping on a new platform is either going to identify the gaps that you have in your own business and your own process, or you can hire someone to do things for you. But the biggest mistake that we see, because I'm helping companies scale from that, there's a magical time when it's 1 to 5 people and everyone's doing everything. And then that 5 to 15, people have to start delegating. And then, it's 25 to people. And now you have to delegate to a department. The biggest failure is that they're not communicating with one another. People are just doing things, or they put it on set it and forget it. And they wonder why this isn't performing. And it's like, set it and forget it is not a thing anymore. That's not something that you can do. You actually have to, if you want your content to perform, and you don't have the money to put behind advertising, what we've seen is that you've got to get really good about your strategy. And Teresa, you mentioned a couple of the courses that you have, and you have a course, right, for VAs and for social media managers, as well as for business owners, correct? So you kind of have attacked both different spectrums, like the people that are servicing people that want to get on Pinterest, and then the business owners that, like, hi, I would like to learn about it, right? So you've got both courses available, and people can get that on your website, correct?
Yes, on my website. And one thing, when I never thought I was going to create a course, I never thought about teaching. But then when I had people asking me, and then it hit me, well, first, by providing service, I cannot serve everyone. Second,
Mhm.
if I don't share my findings, what I've learned, what I put together after working with several platforms, because you see, that's the beauty of all the things that I did in order to get here, because we have a
Yeah.
bird's view. We can integrate, and that's where the magic happens. And I also had that feeling that most Pinterest people were gatekeeping, trying
Yeah.
to get into the Pinterest service community and learn from them. They gatekeep everything. Even when you buy a course, And I took several courses, and I would have that feeling at the end of the course, wow, I know everything about this platform, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the course came out of that frustration. And I said, I want to have mini me's. I want to give
Yeah.
everything that I know to people who can do this in the most, in a very, how can I say, successful way. Be a business owner who wants to do it himself, herself, or
Yeah.
who wants to learn, or if they want to provide the service. Because, and in a way that I like to call it almost algorithm proof, because even though that's another fear people have, Pinterest changed so much. Actually, every platform changes so much.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have to deal with it.
And
We
I think you and I have talked about that. We do not develop things that are to game algorithms because that is the quickest way to failure, no
yes,
matter what platform you're doing, right? Because I think if you're spending time trying to hack an algorithm, what you're going to do, and I think this is why people get so disappointed, right? Especially like when we look at like influencer marketing, or now no one's an influencer anymore, right? They're a content creator. I think
yes,
people get so disappointed, right? That little subtle, like, oh, there's no influencers, we're content
content
creators. But
creators. Yes.
yes, but what I think is very fascinating is, when you tell someone, you tell a client that's hired an influencer, it's like, oh, they're showing you the screenshots that they did on engagement for a loop giveaway where they had 10 other influencers that they were working with. Let's look at a post that's a little bit more obscure and not this
More
and see what the
patient.
engagement rate. Right. And so all of a sudden that 48% engagement rate is really only like 2%.
Exactly.
And those are the things though that we should never, and I'm going to reiterate this to all of you guys that are watching. If you're trying to figure out how to hack an algorithm, hire an entire department to do that and let them do their thing, because and that is a separate initiative from your standard content, because just about the time you figure out what works is when they change
Obsolete.
it.
It's obsolete.
And and here's the thing. I would rather focus on the consistency and the quality of content and solving people's problems and answering their questions. I think one of the things that I really love about how Teresa has approached this is she clearly knows that she cannot Xerox herself, right? But she has created ways to give that information because when she went looking for it, it just wasn't available. And I
Gatekeep.
think and I think what happens is you have a select group of people that do know the information, don't share the information. And here's the thing, for everything that we're seeing today, if you really wanted to Google, you could find a piece of data that would
Yes.
contradict it. But that's true for everything. So what you're trusting is that the person has had enough experience in that sector, in that market to go, okay, I'm going to trust them. But you're not going to get anywhere by going, and we see this too, right? The course phenomenon of people buying tons of courses and never logging in,
Yes.
or like, because it feels like I did something, but I didn't do anything. And I think what you've done is you've created this really great resource for people who are trying to learn while also providing some very ethical revenue streams for yourself. And I think a lot of people get in this idea of, oh, I'm never going to create a course. And I'm like, if you have expertise, you should be creating a course or you should be giving information away. That's what I do with LinkedIn. I am always giving strategies and tools because people come onto LinkedIn and I'm like, you don't spam people. You don't ask people to be introduced to someone because that's their personal business reputation unless you've built that relational capital. And I think people forget relational capital exists on every platform, not just LinkedIn. It is, and I just love that you're into a solution where so many people are like into the problem, right? They're so into like, oh, no one's giving me the information. We'll figure it out. No one's going to do it for us, right? So we might as well do it.
And I really liked what you said. Actually, you answered how to beat the algorithm. Because how you beat any algorithm is by creating high quality content, is by connecting, listening to your audience, being consistent, you know, continuously putting high quality. That's how you can beat any algorithm change.
Yeah.
And this is also, one of the cores that I always share. You don't have to listen to all of the crazy hacks. Before you
Yeah.
jumping on any hack, think about it. Does it make sense? And then
Yeah.
go a little step further. Can that person actually show numbers that it worked?
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
They have no feeling.
Math is indifferent. And
No
that's one of the
feeling.
things that I love about the data is that the data is the data. Like, and
So,
sometimes it's really people freak out because I was trying to explain to someone. I work with a colleague, and she just got on TikTok. She's a model. And so she's having fun because she says TikTok is the platform where she can be her imperfect self, right? And we're evaluating a ton of different strategies for her. But the one thing she said that she's noticed is she's putting out content and she'll look at the numbers and, to get a conversion, because she's got products that she sells, right? It's got to hit at least 300,000 views for her to see 100 sales. And I think if more people were upfront with their numbers, the expectations would be very realistic. So think about this. This is a well-known model that people know in the beauty industry. For 100 conversions of a purchase, like on TikTok, she has to get a minimum of 300,000 views on that video.
yes.
Right? And she shared some other ones. I'm not going to share all of them, but just that in and of itself should set the realistic bar for what conversion looks like. And I think for as great as I love all my performance marketers, I think that the thing that gets lost in this process, which I believe Pinterest solves in terms of a platform, is Pinterest allows someone to build that deeper relationship, seek out the information they know, find ancillary information, and it's a very accessible platform. There's a
Yes.
lot of people that I talk about, they're visually impaired or they're deaf. Pinterest actually has one of the most inclusive platforms for people that maybe are hard of hearing or vision impaired. And that's what I think is, when we start looking at all these platforms, like that's the direction that everything is going. And it is to be inclusive. And I don't think that people think about that when they're putting out content and videos, right? Whenever I do a video, I try to put up as many captions because I know people may not be able to hear me, or I know people may not be able to see me. So we spend a lot of time doing descriptions. And I think what I love the most is that we're sitting here talking right now today because I followed you on a platform because I liked what you had to share and say, and I kept coming back, right? And I think that's every marketer's dream in this space. That's how you build your
Power of
following.
parasocial relations. And the thing is that after a while, you're following someone, it's almost like you know that person.
Mhm.
There is a connection. You never met, but you feel connected. And Pinterest is also an opportunity to do that without being a social media platform.
Yeah.
Where people, and you mentioned, about people going in and, using a platform for relaxation. It makes me think of one person that I connected because that person found me on Facebook, and he hasn't messaged me in for a while, but I knock on the wood because I can never not answer him. So this guy, he is autistic, and he found me because I need you to answer me a question. Will Pinterest last forever? And then I'm like, okay. And then he goes, are you a Pinterest expert? Yes. And then he explained, I am in the spectrum, and Pinterest helps me calm down, helps me
Yeah.
feel grounded. And I am on Pinterest every day. But I'm afraid that Pinterest will end. And what am I going to do? How am I going to live the rest of my life? So, conversation with what do you tell this adult, which is a child inside? And I,
Yeah.
what most people, he said, I've reached out to many people, they always block me. And somehow I said, I can't block him. He could be my
Yeah.
child. He could be
Yeah.
something. So we always talk, and he is really grateful. And every time he has his anxiety building up, I get a ping. Is Pinterest going to last forever? I am so sorry for bothering you. I just need you to answer. Or I talked to someone and someone said it's not going to last. But you see how this person is using Pinterest as a
Yeah.
place to research, to connect, to feel grounded, to be inspired, to get out of all of his
Yeah.
angst.
And I think that's the most empathetic response that we can have, whether it's a question from a follower or, as we've been talking about Pinterest, and, for those of you guys that are watching, you're like, I can't believe Vanessa's talking about Pinterest. I am a big believer that number one, if you don't know enough about something, follow the people that do, learn enough to be dangerous, and then refer them the business or refer them the clients. Because as a strategist, my job is to really look and architect a plan that's going to work for a client, right? And sometimes that plan includes me for the long run, and sometimes it includes my resources. And I
Yes.
recently did a project with somebody where, they got to a point in the business where I was like, great, we need to hire you a funnel expert and a copywriting team. And they're like, well, can't you guys just do it? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't specialize in long form, short form copy for funnels. So we're going to go over here. And I went to a partner of mine. And so the cool thing is in the process of my journey of learning and connecting and following someone, now I have found another resource. When someone comes to me and has their Pinterest thing, I'm like, great, you need to call Tereza because she's going to be the perfect speaker for your conference. She'll be the great guest, teacher for your event. She'll be that great keynote on this topic because that is not my expertise. And the greatest thing that you can do is to not be the smartest person in a room. And I think a lot of times as a business and marketing strategist, the reason I am not platform specific is because I have my two that I focus on, but really I'm just, hey, this is what I think you're going to need. And then, I may make the recipe and I will provide them the vendors that are the ingredients. And, maybe we'll help them bake the cake and maybe we won't. But in that process, what we learn is that so many of us have these similar belief systems. And unfortunately, we're not always the loudest voices on the platforms. And so the best thing that we can do is connect with one another. And the thing is that do people gatekeep platforms? Absolutely. 100%. There is a group that also does a lot of gatekeeping on LinkedIn. They're very powerful. They get almost all of their members and their friends into teaching those LinkedIn live courses and stuff. I'm not worried about that. Like, that is not my problem. I am not going to spend every day worrying about the people that are gatekeeping me.
No.
What I have done instead is chosen to go and interview experts in different industries and find the people whose names that maybe you don't know, or maybe you've seen their content and you saved it and you haven't watched it yet. So as we're coming down to the top of the hour, guys, just to confirm what we went over today so that we can make sure. Now, I went over these statistics and Teresa wasn't on camera when I did this, but again, Pinterest, 478 million active users monthly. That is crazy. That is a banana sandwich, right? Total number of pins saved by users, 240 billion. Between October and September of this year, October 2020, September this year, 1.2 billion total visits. Pinterest market value is valued at about 49 billion percent of the market. We've got an age spectrum here. So, if you're sitting there and you're going, oh my gosh, I need to do something, here are a couple things that you need to do. Number one, on this scroll, there is Tereza's website. You can learn all about her. You can actually follow her on Pinterest. You can learn more about her courses there. I'll also, in the recap, you'll see, the places you guys can go. You can follow her on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. And Teresa, do you have any other way for people to connect with you? Or are those the main channels?
Those are the main channels, or email. Email me at tereza@terezatoledo.com.
There
I
you go.
try to make everything very straightforward. And even, if anybody who really wants to get started, the very first step is to create an account, download the app and create an account and start playing around. I do have a little quick guide, free guide
Mhm.
that people can just see step by step. This is what it is. This is what each part of Pinterest says. This is what it means. So makes it super easy to understand the differences that we have on Pinterest, because obviously each platform, has similarities, but also has things that are different. And, just kind of cut into the chase. I don't
Yeah,
believe that you need to know everything about Pinterest to succeed. You don't. If
you
you
don't.
know how the platform works, the core values of the platform, you can succeed. If you understand that Pinterest is a place where you inspire before advertising, it will be a win. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty,
Mhm.
and the thing is that Pinterest wants to work with you. Pinterest wants to enable your growth. Pinterest now has programs for merchants where pretty much
Yeah.
you can, Pinterest, once everything's connected well and you become a verified merchant, which is not something just for big names, small names can get it too with just
Mhm.
10, 20 products. Pinterest pushes your content automatically. So there are different ways that Pinterest really wants to work with businesses and creators, content creators, not
And
influencers.
yeah, content creators. Well, I noticed that subtle thing in probably about the last 90 days of like all the people that I saw on Instagram as influencers are now content creators. And so I
Oh,
was giggling,
it
but I
is.
said it's marketing. They're rebranding, right?
That's
So,
good, right?
right. And I think if there's anything that we've learned today, and Teresa summed it up, you don't have to be an expert, but you do need to get started if it's something you want to learn about. Her website has an incredible guide. It's going to walk you through kind of just the basics, the 101. And there's a ton of different ways that you can engage with her on social. And I want to thank you so much for giving, me your time today and going on this journey with us, because we've just been trying to connect with people that are aces in the space, so to speak. And I'm just so appreciative of your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here. I do feel privileged to be reached out, that you found me, and we're here. I appreciate it.
Awesome.